Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today we begin Chapter 8 of Alice Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll, and it's called It's My Own Invention. I wonder what that could be. Shall we find out? If you're ready, I'll begin. After a while, the noise seemed gradually to die away till all was dead silence, and Alice lifted up her head in some alarm. There was no one to be seen, and her first thought was that she must have been dreaming about the lion and the unicorn and those queer Anglo-Saxon messengers. However, there was the great dish still lying at her feet, on which she had tried to cut the plum cake. So I wasn't dreaming after all, she said to herself, unless we're all part of the same dream. Only I do hope it is my dream and not the Red King's. I don't like belonging to another person's dream, she went on in a rather complaining tone. I've a great mind to go and wake him up and see what happens. At this moment her thoughts were interrupted by a large shouting of, "Ahoy! Ahoy! Check!" And a knight dressed in crimson armour came galloping down upon her, brandishing a great club. Just as he reached her, the horse stopped suddenly. "You're my prisoner," the knight cried as he tumbled off his horse. Startled as she was, Alice was more frightened for him than for herself at that moment, and watched him with some anxiety as he mounted again. As soon as he was comfortably in the saddle, he began once more, "You're my—" But here another voice broke in, "Ahoy! Ahoy! Check!" And Alice looked round in some surprise for the new enemy. This time it was a white knight. He drew up at Alice's side and tumbled off his horse just as the red knight had done. Then he got on again, and the two knights sat and looked at each other for some time without speaking. Alice looked from one to the other in some bewilderment. "She is my prisoner, you know," the red knight said at last. Yes, but then I came and rescued her," the white knight replied. "Well, we must fight for her then," said the red knight, as he took up his helmet, which hung from the saddle, and it was something the shape of a horse's head, and he put it on. "You will observe the rules of battle, of course," the white knight remarked, putting on his helmet too. "I always do," said the red knight, and they began banging away at each other with such fury that Alice got behind a tree to be out of the way of the blows. "I wonder now what the rules of battle are," she said to herself as she watched the fight, timidly peeping out from her hiding place. "One rule seems to be that if one knight hits the other, he knocks him off his horse, and if he misses, he tumbles off himself. And another rule seems to be that they hold their clubs with their arms, as if they were Punch and Judy. Oh dear, what a noise they make when they tumble, just like a whole set of fire irons falling into the fender. And how quiet the horses are. They just let them get on and off them as if they were tables." Another rule of battle that Alice had not observed seemed to be that they always fell on their heads, and the battle ended with their both falling off in this way, side by side. When they got up again, they shook hands, and then the red knight mounted and galloped off. "It was a glorious victory, wasn't it?" said the white knight as he came up panting. "I don't know," said Alice doubtfully. "I don't want to be anybody's prisoner. I want to be a queen." "So you will, when you've crossed the next brook," said the white knight. "I'll see you safe to the end of the wood, and then I must go back. You know, it is the end of my move." "Thank you very much," said Alice. "May I help you off with your helmet?" It was evidently more than he could manage by himself. However, she managed to shake it off him at last. "Nah, Now one can breathe more easily, said the knight, putting back his shaggy hair with both hands, and turning his gentle face and large mild eyes to Alice. She thought she had never seen such a strange-looking soldier in all her life. He was dressed in tin armour, which seemed to fit him very badly, and he had a queer-shaped little deal box fastened across his shoulder, upside down, with the lid hanging open. Alice looked at it with great curiosity. "Ah, I see you're admiring my little box," the knight said in a friendly tone. "It's my own invention, you know. It's to keep clothes and sandwiches in. You see, I carry it upside down, so the rain can't get in it." "But the things can get out," Alice gently remarked. "Do you know the lid's open?" I didn't know it," the knight said, a shade of vexation crossing his face. "And all the things must have fallen out. Oh, and the box is no use without them." He unfastened it as he spoke, and was just going to throw it into the bushes, when a sudden thought seemed to strike him, and he hung it carefully on a tree. "Can you guess why I did that?" he said to Alice. Alice shook her head. "In hopes some bees may make a nest in it. Then I should get the honey." "But you've got a beehive or something fastened to your saddle," Alice said. "Oh, yes, it is a very good beehive," the knight said in a discontented tone. "One of the best kind. But not a single bee has come near it yet. The other thing is a mouse-trap. I suppose the mice keep the bees out, or the bees keep the mice out. I don't know which." "I was wondering what the mouse-trap was for," said Alice. "It isn't very likely there would be any mice on the horse's back." "Not very likely, perhaps," said the knight. "But if they do come, I do not choose to have them running all about. You see," he went on after a pause, "it's as well to be provided for everything. That's the reason the horse has got all those anklets on its feet." "But what are they for?" Alice asked in a tone of great curiosity. "To guard against the bites of sharks," the knight replied. "It's an invention of my own. And now, come on, help me on. I'll go with you to the end of the wood." "What's the dish for?" "It's meant for plum cake," said Alice. "Ah, we'd better take it with us," said the knight. "It'll come in handy if we find any plum cake. Come on, help me get it into this bag." This took a very long time to manage, though Alice held the bag open very carefully, because the knight was so very awkward in putting in the dish. The first 2 or 3 times that he tried, he fell in himself instead. "It's got a rather tight fit, you see," he said, as they got it in at last. "There are so many candlesticks in the bag." And he hung it to the saddle, which was already loaded with bunches of carrots and fire-irons and many other things. "I hope you got your hair well fastened on," he continued as they set off. "Only in the usual way," Alice said, smiling. Oh, no, that's hardly enough," he said anxiously. "You see, the wind is so very strong here. It's as strong as soup." "Have you ever invented a plan for keeping the hair from being blown off?" Alice inquired. "Not yet," said the knight, "but I have a plan from keeping it from falling off." "I should like to hear it very much." "First, you take an upright stick," said the knight. "Then you make your hair creep up it, like a fruit tree. Now, the reason the hair falls off is because it hangs down. Things never fall upwards, you know. It's a plan of my own invention. You may try it if you like." It didn't sound like a comfortable plan, Alice thought, and for a few minutes she walked on in silence, puzzling over the idea, and every now and then stopping to help the poor knight, who certainly was not a good rider. Whenever the horse stopped, which it did very often, he fell off in front, and whenever it went on again, which it generally did rather suddenly, he fell off behind. Otherwise, he kept on pretty well, except that he had a habit of now and then falling off sideways. And as he generally did this on the side in which Alice was walking, she soon found that it was the best plan not to walk quite so close to the horse. "I am afraid you've not had much practice in riding," she ventured to say, as she was helping him up from his 5th tumble. The knight looked very much surprised, and a little offended at the remark. "What makes you say that?" he asked, as he scrambled back into the saddle, keeping hold of Alice's hair with one hand to save himself from falling over on the other side. "Because people don't fall off quite so often when they've had much practice." "I've plenty of practice," the knight said very gravely. "Plenty of practice." Alice could think of nothing better than to say, "Indeed?" But she said it as heartily as she could. They went on a little way in silence after this, the knight with his eyes shut, muttering to himself, and Alice watching anxiously for the next tumble. "The great art of riding," the knight suddenly began in a loud voice, waving his right arm as he spoke, "is to keep." Here the sentence ended as suddenly as it began, as the knight fell heavily on the top of his head exactly in the path where Alice was walking. She was quite frightened this time, and said in an anxious tone as she picked him up, "Oh, I hope no bones are broken." "None to speak of," the knight said, as if he didn't mind breaking 2 or 3 of them. "The great art of riding is, as I was saying, is to keep your balance properly. Like this, you know." He let go the bridle and stretched out both his arms to show Alice what he meant, and this time he fell flat on his back, right under the horse's feet. "Plenty of practice," he went on repeating, all the time that Alice was getting him on his feet again. "Plenty of practice. "It's too ridiculous," cried Alice, losing all her patience this time. "You ought to have a wooden horse on wheels, that you ought." "Does that kind go smoothly?" the knight asked in a tone of great interest, clasping his arms around the horse's neck as he spoke, just in time to save himself from tumbling off again. "Much more smoothly than a live horse," Alice said with a little scream of laughter, in spite of all she could do to prevent it. "I'll get one," the knight said thoughtfully to himself. "1 or 2. Several. Ha!" There was a short silence after this, and then the knight went on again. "I'm a great hand at inventing things. Now, I dare say that you noticed the last time you picked me up that I was looking rather thoughtful." "You were a little grave," said Alice. "Well, just then I was inventing a new way of getting over a gate. Would you like to hear it?" "Very much indeed," said Alice politely. "I'll tell you how I came to think of it," said the knight. "You see, I said to myself, the only difficulty is with the feet. The head is high enough already. Now, first I put my head on the top of the gate. Then I stand on my head. Then the feet are high enough, you see? Then I am over. You see?" "Yes, I suppose you'd be over when that was done," Alice said thoughtfully. "But don't you think it would be rather hard?" "I haven't tried it yet," the knight said gravely, "so I can't tell for certain, but I'm afraid it would be a little hard." He looked so vexed at the idea that Alice changed the subject hastily. "Oh, what a curious helmet you've got," she said cheerfully. "Is that your invention too?" The knight looked down proudly at his helmet, which hung from the saddle.
"Yes," he said, "but I've invented a better one than that, like a sugar loaf. When I used to wear it, if I fell off the horse, it always touched the ground directly, so I had a very little way to fall, you see. But there was the danger of falling into it, to be sure. That happened to me once, and the worst of it was, before I could get out again, the other white knight came and put it on. He thought it was his own helmet."
The knight looked so solemn about it that Alice did not dare to laugh. "I'm afraid you must have hurt him," she said in a trembling voice, "being on the top of his head."
"I had to kick him, of course," the knight said very seriously, "and then he took the helmet off again, but it took me hours and hours to get me out. I was as fast as lightning, you know."
"But that's a different kind of fastness," Alice objected. The knight shook his head.
"It was all kinds of fastness with me, I can assure you," he said.
He raised his hands in some excitement as he said this, and instantly rolled out of the saddle and fell headlong into a deep ditch. Whoops! What a clumsy knight this is! I don't know about you, though, but I love that character. Don't you? I can't wait to see what other inventions he comes up with. What do you think he might invent? Let us know below. Anyway, tune in tomorrow to see what his next inventions are. My name's been Sascha Cooper, and this has been Alice Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. Take care, everybody, and stay safe. Bye-bye.